Look, rhythmic elements. But that's on me. That's on me.
That is on you. That is so on you. Hello and welcome back to the Know It Alls podcast. I'm Ayanda Charlie.
And I am Fezoshim Tonti. We are your favorite popular culture nerds.
Yes, and we are back with our pop quiz. This week I am Game Master.
Okay.
And I have 5 questions for you. They're not going to be hard.
Okay.
Maybe they'll be hard. I don't know.
Maybe they'll be hard? Okay.
But I'm really excited. So I'm not going to kind of over-introduce them, but you know what to do as you think through. Question number 1.
Mm-hmm.
Who among these 3 is the best of the white South African soap opera villains?
Oh, okay.
Because we're good about that trope.
Yes. We
have
love a villain.
Yeah, and we love to make them white. The cast will be like overwhelmingly black and the villain will be white. Shout out Rhythm City, Isitingo, and more.
Generations.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, shout out to Anne.
Anne!
Please, love her
Did
down.
you see one of our people commented on YouTube being like...
shout out to her, yes.
Shout out to
and she's
Anne.
great. Anne needs a category that, you know, is worthy of her and her expanse, you know, so... But yes, among these 3, who's your favorite?
Okay.
Or who's, like, the best?
Mm-hmm.
David Gennaro of Rhythm City.
Okay.
Barker Haynes of Isitingo. Mm-hmm. And what do you know? Anne. From Generations.
This is contentious.
It is. It had
This
to be a
is-
tight comp.
This is a contentious one. Of the whites?
Yeah.
I think as a performer,
Yes.
David was
Ooh.
extremely versatile.
Yeah.
Really brought a
So now we're
humanity.
talking about the actor.
Wait.
Oh.
Wait.
Actually, it's fine. That can be your metric.
Really brought a humanity to the character, and I think was actually written to be a little bit more villainous than his portrayal was. I think he really kind of
Do you think his quirks and like eccentricism made him more human for you?
yes, I think he really kind of I had a drama lecturer who would be like, you know, Fezzi, your monologue is great, but it's missing. And I'd be like, hi, sorry, what's that?
Yeah.
And he'd be like, it's the you know what I mean?
Je-
And I think in that sense,
Okay, he's got that thing.
he really like
Yeah.
brought a humanity there. I think Barker really gave us the Stefano Demira
He did.
type
he did.
energy.
Yeah.
And he really kind of matched the international kings.
Yes.
Um,
Why is that so funny to me? Also, shout out to the mining town plot. Like,
Yes!
all the built-in villains and it's such a good plot.
I-
Isitingo, come back.
I don't want to tell my story. I'm still
tell
going to
my
write this
story.
article.
Oh, please do.
Or, we're going to pitch it somewhere.
Okay.
About what Isitingo was to this guy. Oh, we'll have an episode.
Oh, you know?
You know what?
Because we can do what we want.
Because we can.
Yeah. Okay, we have to choose
Sorry. And then there is Anne.
Anne.
And I thought Anne was such a rich text in every way. David Gennaro.
I saw that coming.
Yeah.
I get that.
Yeah.
I get that. David is a lot of people's favorites villain.
But shout out to Anne. Shout out to Anne.
Shout out to Anne. And like Anne is a rich text.
Yeah.
Which is why I do actually want her to come back. Maybe in another category or just as someone that we talk about. Because like the transphobia that jumped out of us when she was on our televisions. Is amazing, telling,
And
interesting. And I'll be interested because that's not even just the character, that's the actor and their body. And like I'd be interested to talk to her about that experience.
And I think at some point we need to parallel perhaps to Chai Mendes' experience, who was on Generations.
Yes.
And
yes.
I think,
New age generations.
Yes,
yeah.
and I think the first time we kind of saw a trans man.
Yes, I know. Everyone, yes.
Because Chai
trans
is biologically
yeah.
a woman.
Well, the character was a trans man.
Yes,
Yes,
I know the
yes,
character
yes,
was a trans
yes,
man.
yeah.
But what I'm saying is,
The actor.
right? And I think the kind of scripts that suddenly appeared onto their body in relation to South Africans kind of grappling.
Yeah.
And this is fascinating because up until that point, we don't necessarily have our disclosure moments the same way that the American girls have.
Yes, we don't.
But
and Disclosure, the documentary on Netflix.
Sorry, yes. Yeah. But we know that trans people have been here since eternity. But we are not necessarily having this conversation in the media. So it would be really interesting to see what, and the scripts around the kind of... the racialized experiences that they had.
100%. Yeah. So,
sorry, that's
next up, which of these celebrity memoirs would you set as course reading?
This is a good question.
Right?
This is a good question. Production. This is what we want.
Somebody's not getting fired. So the kind of context, the class, right? The hypothetical class you'd be setting this as course reading for would be something that is to do with the industry at large, right? So these people wrote about their lives, but they also write heavily about their experience as, whatever.
I got you.
Yeah. I need the audience to also...
Got you?
You got it? Great.
I do some lecturing. In my multiple jobs.
So, would you choose A, Pamela Nomvete's dancing on the beat, dancing to the beat of my own drum? Bonangs from A to B.
Oh. You knew what you were doing with that.
You knew what you were doing.
You knew what you were doing with that.
And, or C, Unatinka is I keep learning.
Oh. Interesting. This is an interesting mix.
Yeah.
South African girls... Get to writing, by the way. We're curious.
Yeah, I needed more, guys. They actually win a lot of memoirs.
We're actually curious about your lives, Pamela Nombet.
Ooh, say more.
I think was probably of the three, the best literary experience. So I'm also interested in the kind of writing and the kind of rhythm of the story. I am also interested in conversations around home, exile, domestic violence, what it meant to be a particular kind of character as a woman on television in the early 2000s.
Early to mid
2000s. I'm very fascinated by that time in South African television. I would also think Unatsi's story would be great, but the thing about Unatsi, she's a much better orator than I've seen of her kind of written work. I feel like she's far more articulate in conversation.
Yes, yeah.
And I'd be far more interested in a podcast from her. Than I would
when she tells the story.
Yes, than I would a written text. And also just because she has that's her proficiency.
Thing. Yeah.
That's her proficiency.
Yeah. Okay.
And
that's fine. And that's
all I have to say. I'm not trying to get us cancelled. At episode 8.
I don't even know what you're talking about. Which of these musical acts are you wiping from South African music history?
Oh. Okay.
And
so violence.
It's the
So violence, you're praising violence.
It's the person, it's the artist.
Okay.
Right?
The artist?
Yeah. So as in I said acts because it's not just individuals. Some are groups.
Okay, got it.
So would you A, wipe Mkharembe?
In the meantime, shitty. That guy?
Yes.
Okay.
Or rhythmic elements?
I don't know rhythmic elements.
Who can tell?
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
Or Liquid Deep.
Check BBM.
2 hits immediately. Oh.
And you will see. Her status says, she's playing my song.
Playing my song.
Who am I taking away?
Yes.
These are iconic.
That's the point.
Iconic. Look, rhythmic elements. But that's on me. That's on me.
That is on you. That is so on you.
That's on me. That's on me. That's my...
What's behind the decision?
I mean, I'm aware of their music.
Wow.
Feeling the sounds of young South African nightlife.
Wow. Wow. I chose all these because they all had Song of the Year, I think.
That's great.
And I think,
Wonderful.
please, I just don't know which one Liquid Deep won for, but I just know they won.
Wait, are you talking about like summer?
Metro Summer.
Oh, okay.
Either.
Okay. Well,
Wait, did Mkhanebe actually win that? Listen, the People's Song of the Year, if anything. But I was like,
the
no,
people's
if it's
national
the artist,
anthem.
Yeah.
Actually.
I'm going to intervene here, right?
Yeah.
Because I feel like Mkhanebe gave us one song.
Yes, in the
And so you would keep him for that one song and get rid of Rhythm City, Rhythmic Elements, and all of their discography. I understand.
No,
but I just
sure.
want you to
It's
say
just-
it with your chest.
That song has done what Mendoza started, what he seeded
Okay.
in the kind of like South African Rainbow Nation, right? You know?
Yeah. A
Um,
song that unites us all.
You know, it's the kind of song where you are at your annual Christmas party and it plays and then your white colleagues are like,
Yeah.
we're playing something for you.
But also for me,
But for me-
But here's the thing, though. It's those songs. Yes, you are right. Yeah. I think there's a difference between Galagata and that one, but we'll come back another day. But I hear
We're
you.
going to be here. for long.
Yes. Finally, which of these iconic celebrity couples? I want to phrase it properly.
Okay.
Do you feel
Yeah.
were kind of the... Oh, this is not my last question. Were the original kind of South African media power couples.
Oh.
Right? And by that, they all were, right? They all are these things. But which of them do you feel like are like the most iconic, I guess?
Okay. Yeah.
We have Nkensani Ngosi, Nozam Ngosi.
Oh.
Zaba, Zaba, Zaba.
Love them.
Also just beautiful looking people.
Gorgeous.
And then Basizana and Romeo Kumalo. And then of course we have Ubabu Ngobo, Hashirim Mhlophe and his wife.
This is interesting. Look at what she did.
Because you thought you were going this way.
And then you. Sorry, the Zulu girl and me. You know what it is. You know what time it is. You know what time it is.
I love that.
And you know why?
Why?
Because actually my critique of this podcast is that there's not enough peri-urban content.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
This is my critique. This is my self
Not
critique
even
of the podcast.
Okay.
Of which I'm a co-host. Okay?
Okay.
I think we need these takes. These are fascinating.
They are. They 100% are.
So this is, viewers, my attempt to convince Ayanda that...
saying that's not... I'm definitely cutting that. That's going to be muted. That's not an on-air conversation. Because then I can bring all of the peri-urban stuff I want to talk about. That she is just
that I hate.
Skirty cat. To that's moot.
Okay, got it. Fair.
Final. Oh,
But yes,
you've chosen your
Yashi
girls.
Elimhlope. I do want to give a shout out though to Basi and
Yeah.
yes.
Oh no, they're and
Yes.
like probably like are the most visible, long-standing kind of. They get what they get. Finally, for real, which of these? And I wanted to end on a laugh note. Which of these South African designers impacted South African red carpets the most? Right. So
That's
this
a
is
question.
before we were like we're wearing international European
Yeah.
girls and
Yeah.
American designers.
Yeah,
Back
before we
when-
have Ocean's Mall.
A. David Sale.
Yes.
B. Gavin Raja.
Mm.
C. San Godes, which is the brand of Tando and Vanya Mangaliso.
Yes.
Shout out to all three, by the
Shout
way.
out to all three. Also, fantastic questions. Gave
Thank
us
you.
an array of material to work with. I love it. We
glad.
went from fashion to, love it.
It's almost
Love.
like we're a pop culture podcast.
You know what I mean. David Lally.
Ooh,
Is
say
my very easy answer. I think David Lally. I don't actually know historically who comes first.
Yeah.
But I got the sense that David Lale was very quickly able to solidify his presence as a kind of luxury designer that just wasn't doing, particular niche things, but things to be photographed, to be spoken about, to be
so like fashion is art, fashion is spectacle.
Yes, right. I think he was really one of the first designers in South Africa to really kind of
elevate,
understand that, and that this thing was a medium in and of itself that could have further conversations, right? And I think was really interesting and popular at the time when we had our own versions of the fashion police, and we kind of saw, continuously we heard David
Lale. Personality kind of emerged,
But I mean, it was really interesting. For me, I think that time, not necessarily in the same kind of fashion, but it was interesting to see, what was it, Cherry...
Stone Cherry.
Stone Cherry
by
at that
Nkensani
time.
Ngosi.
Yes, and then we kind of had like...
Which was more kind of regular, ready to wear, and not so much... not so much red carpet.
And then we had like Lokshan culture and whatever, and it just felt like it was this really interesting time where South African designers, at least at that point, were really starting to have a conversation in and amongst themselves about how to really galvanize a story around South African fashion. I think we're doing it again. I think we have the Tebe Magugus, who is in the atelier at the Met Gala, which is crazy.
Yeah.
And so we have a bunch of other girls that are doing fantastic, incredible, multi-referential work.
Yes.
But I feel like David Lale really got the girls talking. And of course there's like the Tula Cindy's and the others, but I feel like
I fully understand what you're saying. No, I think it's crystal clear. I mean, that's why he's among these people, because for a good, I think for the mid 2000s to 2010s, there would be a designer who just dominates the red carpet.
Yeah.
And like San Godes had such a moment where it was just them. Rebecca Malope was like, and she wore it on the video, she wore it on stage, she wore it on the red carpet. Like they were just dressing everyone.
Yeah.
Right. And then there was Echel Johan Kotier moment, which quickly became a very Bonang kind of specific designer.
Yeah.
And then Gavin Raja also had it feels like it was short-lived, although I feel like if I were to go back, it wouldn't be. I think all these people kind of concurrently rose. But Gavin Raja also gave us this kind of like individual celebrity designer moment. But the reason why David Lale, I think, wins is because his has been more consistent. He's consistently visible. He also has a personality to attach to David Lale, whereas I think Gavin Raja is like, this is my face, but the personality of the brand is more important.
Yeah, and I think, that's an interesting conversation we always have in media, is like, when does, in literature as well, when the author and the work
become...
and I think that's true of this particular creative pursuit as well. I mean, he's also on the mind because I saw on TikTok that he was on
another podcast.
And and he was kind of like really kind of speaking to what it is. And interestingly enough, now that we're going to go to Real Housewives of Durban, why aren't the queens paying our South African, and yes, of course, there are South Africans that are making the designs for them, and they have told all the stories of the 50,000 beads that made their corsets and stuff like that. But I was looking at, Showmax is doing this thing right now where we have Londi and Unonku showing us, their YSL, their Balmain, their...
Is it like closet tours?
Yes, just like what they're packing for their Jamaican trip.
Oh, okay.
And what bags they're bringing and so on and so forth. Neri, a South African designer. There's Lueve, there's this, there's that. And I just... that was odd to me. That was really odd to me. And I think having heard him say it so recently, I looked around and I was like...
It really is. Yeah.
What's going on? Yeah. And then, that's bizarre. That's very bizarre to me that the girls are not, especially because they're older girls. They are the demographic that should be wearing a Tula Cindy. They are the demographic that should be
collecting and, those pieces. I think I would love to get into that because I think there's so many levels to like approach a conversation from. Because I think an element to it is that there's a culture in kind of celebrity styling where they don't normalize paying. I mean, Laura Roach just made headlines telling people that Zendaya buys every look she wears, right? Like, so it's not a norm even in the international market where, you know, the international designers, you know, would say this is our stomping ground. So there's that element of culture, but then we also know how we all respond to local versus, you know, international. So it is a quite a...
Yeah. I'm just even surprised that, like, you know, Angel doesn't have a Rich Nisi set.
Like a young person who understands
Like, that's weird to me. That
which is not cheap, by the way. And these people are not
at
rich.
All. At all. Like,
and that's assuming...
Okay, wait. Actually, I have seen Sarisha in Makosa. Actually, I have on the show. But, like, Tebe Makuko, come on. Like,
100%.
It's not... These are not difficult things to find. Anyway.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
And before we move on to the next segment, I just wanted to say, I really... Oh, no, why am I closing this? I realized as we were talking that what I really enjoy about the kind of pop quiz segment is that we get to remind ourselves and other creatives that, like, we... in our short 30 years of democracy, like Black people being able to really explore their talents and get opportunities, we come into such a rich ancestry of creatives who were brave and who were daring and thereby created such a rich culture across all of the arts. Like, it's so interesting how we get to look. We don't even have to go kind of pre-democracy.
At
like
all.
Even in these past 30 years alone, the millennials made so many things for us.
Yes.
Gen X made so many things for us. And I really love looking back at them because they
Yes.
remind me that, like, in recent memory, people have gone ahead and, like, pursued such amazing ideas that enrich the rest of the country.
And also, interestingly, they were all multi-hyphenates as well.
Yeah, well, yeah.
I mean, I guess the creative industry requires
that, which is kind of like, which is an economic problem.
That is.
Yeah.
But I think what that meant is that we had very cohesive cultural conversations and debates.
Yes.
And through creative mediums.
Yes. Because, I understand what you're saying.
And so, like, I don't know, like South Africa, 90s to mid 2000s is just
alone
fascinating, and also politically, because we have been told a particular narrative about our exceptionalism, the fact that we're not quite post-colonial, you know, but we watch the coloniality kind of being underscored in different ways, and we watch the kind of like breakdown of our country politically, economically, socially in some instances. There's also something that's happening in the media where there's both an attempt to conceal and reveal, and we see it in our fashion, we see it in our rejection of respectability politics and boom shaka, you will always be famous. We see it in what we start to say, and then who we deem worth celebrity. And then we also have people like Kanye Mbau who upset that and shift the idea of the socialite into something interesting. We are having really fascinating moments, and then, you know,
we're doing it rapidly.
And we're doing it rapidly because, you know, I'm thinking of like a Paris Hilton and a Kanye Mbau exist in the same kind of era, right? Like, yeah, it's really fascinating. And we're doing it so quickly, and we're both like deeply South African, but also like very obsessed with the West and not doing enough on the continent in terms of expressing, in terms of our kind of cultural expression. But it's also suffused in people like Thandiswa Mazwai, whose era, South Africa is just a rich text.
Yeah.
Sorry. Just
You're right. And I was like, I'm going to let you finish.
Yeah.
And well, of course, like all good things, that had to come to an end. And we have to dive deep into these past 2 episodes of the Real Housewives of Durban Season 4 reunion. let's dive straight in. There's not too much time.
Yeah.
How do you want to do this?
I don't know how I want to do this.
Cool.
I want to tell you immediately that
Tell me immediately.
That's me and Maria are beefing. We have never met a day in each other's lives, but we have a strong beef.
Give me your kind of top 3 big thoughts where you're like, this has been on my chest. I need to get it out, and then we'll get into the minutia.
No, let's get into the minutia.
You want to start with the minutia?
You can.
Well, I don't have minutia. That's the thing. So
yes, top 3. I was speaking to Ayanda off camera about but I think we need the minutia to minutia.
That's why I'm telling you. Start where you feel comfortable, so we can just.
But you know what was surfaced in this reunion that I realized had been actually thoughts that was troubling me with Maria's move back to Jojo. And it's interesting that Sarisha says, we adopted you, and they all scoff.
Yes.
But in fact, that is true. But it's, oh my gosh. Oh, this is kind of coming left field. Okay. Know-it-alls, I hope. Keep me in good faith.
Just go.
I'm a little bit nervous about this. And hit me with grace. I've been thinking a lot about, as always, South African apartheid. Okay?
Yes.
And the kind of racial categories that were invented effectively and institutionalized by South African apartheid, right? And coloniality, right? Like, that's important to bring into this conversation. What happens in a context like KZN, and I guess other parts of the country, but particularly in KwaZulu-Natal, is that a divide is institutionally backed by the apartheid government between African Black people and South Asian or Indian or people that are racialized in that way. Okay. And obviously whites, right?
Yeah.
White being understood as superior, Black being understood as inferior. But there's categories to this, right? And we see it like with the hair test. We see it, your proximity to whiteness is the thing that is given value. Okay. What that then means is that there are nebulous ways in which we oppress and ask for validation from whiteness. Okay. This is a particular experience, I think, for Black South Africans living in KwaZulu-Natal, particularly in corporate spaces, more and more, and in other spaces, actually, is that there is very little camaraderie with Indian folk and African folk.
Like, there's no racial solidarity between them.
There's no kind of
or
racial
like class
solidarity. Class solidarity. Yeah. We see this during the looting.
Yes.
Of
there's July 20.
Yeah, we have this infamous video of this Indian woman who's like,
remember them?
Ooh, sorry.
You were over it. Like, we're losing.
Who's talking and saying, this is not the townships. She's talking about Phoenix.
Yeah.
Sorry. Hey, Queen. She herself is placed in this area, but she has been told, and the South African government of a particular time, and still in very many ways continues to support a racialized
spatial apartheid.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So there's no kind of racial solidarity between these two groups. And we see often, and I think there's literal empirical evidence. Seren Pillay has written a very interesting article about this, where in fact now, because of those histories, we get an instance, I'm coming to my point, where we get a Maria not quite being satisfied being with the Blacks. And that's Sarisha's crew, and it's a very black crew, right? It's a very particularly black crew, in fact. And her need to get a kind of validation from Jojo, right? And the proximity of whiteness that Jojo represents in that particular group. It's interesting to me because the class dimension that Maria realizes that she will never be able to outdo Sarisha on, because this woman is a billionaire, is no longer satisfactory to her. So she has to go then to the proximity of whiteness. And we see in experiences of regular KZN folk, Indian folk using various oppressive tactics to this day to Black South Africans. And there's something about that just kind of becomes clear for me in this reunion. Because what's also interesting is, I'm not necessarily saying these women are racist, and I don't think it just surfaces particular things that I think are happening in South Africa. Is that in the same way that when you go to Cape Town doesn't care about black money. Very particular institutions don't care about black money, but they do care about proximity to whiteness. So sometimes you as a black person will go in and they'll be like, you're absolutely not going in, even though this space is completely empty. Right? Because we just don't believe in your black money. So here's Maria in this moment, disinvesting from the billionaire status of Sarisha, and then is able to attack Sarisha continuously and be hateful continuously to Sarisha in the hopes of being validated by this whiteness and being proximate to this whiteness that Jojo represents. Interesting also, Jojo at least presents as a white South African, which is different to an Afrikaans South African. And there's that Anglo-Saxon liberal sensibility also denotes a different kind of experience in South Africa.
So you are saying that Maria, like when, in terms of how she shows up, all these dynamics are at play.
I think so.
And you are saying that she's strategizing with them in mind?
Yes, and I also think that's why we see the cruelty. That's why we see and also that's why she keeps getting caught up in lies, because and caught up in ugliness that I think is actually beneath her. But in an attempt to establish her space. This is my thoughts about
speculative. It's a theory.
It's very speculative. Yeah. It's actually more existential than it is
about Maria.
Maria. But I watch her, the way that Jojo got very ugly in this reunion. Got very and I just it felt like a pandering to a whiteness, and particularly to a South African whiteness that us crazy and girlies know. We know about this.
That is so interesting.
We know about this.
Yeah.
So that was, and I just, the entire reunion, I kept being like, what is frustrating me here? And what is finally being crystallized in this time? Because now, this is interesting. We need to look at the seating. Remember last season?
Yes.
Maria was with the blacks.
Yeah.
In opposition to Jojo.
Yes.
This season, she's head girl of the white, and Nonku has also made it clear that she is, a quickie black. And her signification of that is, I'm not as black as others. Right?
Yeah. You know
what I mean? Yeah. She only uses and instrumentalizes her blackness when she's going toe-to-toe with the other black girls. But not really. You know what I mean? And this, and being proximate to Jojo allows her to be able to really dig deep into that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I remember, I don't know if it was on or off camera, us talking about the kinds of victimhood that Jojo's white womanness makes available, right, to her narrative, and then by extension, the narrative of Maria, Nonku. I don't know. I don't think Zama leans into that very well.
No,
she's not good at that. Maybe doesn't even want to. I think Zama is a villain, but the particular kind of villainy that is available to this side, right, is very kind of smacks of the kind of villainy that Jojo has been able to weaponize, which is her fragility, also her hysterics.
Yes. Which Maria, by the way, is actually very interested in, despite her saying she is indeed not a victim.
Yeah. But
She
Maria's strategies the whole season have been about, you are victimizing me, and then potentially my son, and then Neil. Because Maria, right? Because Maria came into the season with a vengeance, she can only her narrative can only be informed by victimhood, right? Because she needs to be able to say, my vitriol and my hate is justified because I was hurt first.
Yes.
She won't, but I'll get to that when I talk about Maria in terms of like her as a character for me. But you girls, please comment and like really engage this, because I think as much as it is apartheid was a national, right, experience, but it showed up in different ways regionally, right? Exactly. And so like the relationship that black people might have to colored people in Cape Town, very distinct, also laden with, ideas of proximity, still shows up in the workplace. I read the other day that there was actively, and it's not surprising because I understand what apartheid was. Like, it's like, sure, that would be a policy within that kind of law milieu. But it was still surprising to hear or learn that colored people simply had priority for jobs. Like, they just had priority for jobs, right? Which meant ultimately who could live near the city was also like mediated by that.
100%. So the same. That's the same, which
still informs the work dynamics, that black people and colored people will know who are still based in Cape Town. So that is why I appreciate reality television, because it allows us a tool. No, we have to have our own tools. It's more, and it's not a platform either. It's like a recess. It's like we get to go somewhere where there are no stakes, because it's television, it's a simulation, to have serious conversations that potentially have an impact on our real life.
Yeah.
And I know we're not cracking jokes. I'm so sorry. It's just, I think maybe let's start here. I had such a visceral reaction to this reunion, and it was more frustrating because I was expecting the reunion to give me relief from the frustrating season, right? And I think we all had this issue, and we've tried to like localize the issue to Mablé and just make it about him. It couldn't possibly be, and then a lot of us just go straight to the characters and we say, you're the thing that's wrong with this. But I had to like be a grown-up and like go past like my feelings, which were just frustration, and I felt helpless. And I was like, okay, what makes sense as an expectation from this format, right? Like what can I realistically, and it reminded me of when I first started watching Real Housewives, because I didn't understand these people aren't really friends. Right?
You are
so
frustrated.
Yes. And also, I didn't understand why people wouldn't just end friendships when they were so distressing.
You were like, this is the fourth wall. I'm going to invest.
Exactly. Yeah. So I fully like invested in the simulation, right? Also because those people were a more convincing kind of real and everyday than what we have today. Yeah. Like Nene Leakes was an everyday woman. Like, and even the wealthy women of OC just were like a bit more, they really were fresh faces. Like, because we were just coming out of an era where it was only celebrity faces, right? And like reality TV hadn't been that popular. So like Real Housewives was one of the ones that really stuck, right? So those initial feelings where I was expecting real life reactions to a real life situation that I assumed was completely organic came back, even though decades later, because I have at least been, there had to have been, I know The Real World was in the 90s, right? So like in the lifetime of reality television, when I am now proficient in the language and I understand how it works, I still had those initial frustrations. I was like, okay, I need to step back and think about why I feel this way. So I've got a very small treatise here about like what I come away having learned and like will hopefully use as a tool going into the next one. When we discussed what we expected from the reunion, I was not emotionally invested. So I didn't really consider like what would I like from a reunion. Yeah. But when I think about what a reunion does, right, compared to Real Housewives franchises from like, the US or elsewhere in the world, because that's the only kind of history I have. Like I've only learned about Real Housewives from Real Housewives, right? Like I learned how to
it's a very
speak the language by project, exactly. Yeah. So when I look at those, I'm like, okay, cool, reunions. Why do we need them? We need reunions because a season of Real Housewives is a simulation, right? It's not real life. It's how can we contain certain elements of real life to tell a particular story, and then everyone's organized into characters. And everyone signs that contract about we are telling a story together, and we're using our bodies, and we are using some of our life and maybe not other elements of our life, and some things are going to be invented, and some things are going to be, taken in. Kenya Moore, so interesting as a character there, because she's the first person to really lean into being a character, and like never really... it takes us a while to understand that there's a Kenya Moore who's a real person. Whereas all of them, Nini, Kim, Sheree, were those people. They were showing up as people. They were actually those people. Who just happened to make good characters. But Kenya is someone who's like, I'm going to curate my character. I'm going to be this person. So when you've had a season where it's all simulation, but the audience is having real reactions, you have to take a break. There has to be a moment where we break from the simulation and we come back to reality and we like reestablish what are the laws of this world? Like what are we, and what are we okay with having been contrived? Yes. And what are we okay, and what are we going to own as real? Yes. Like, okay, I was, kind of just telling a good story when I said, Apollo, stop texting me. Like I was still in character, but that was reunion. Like whatever I was doing, I was playing it up, right? Yes. Even Maria tries to hide behind that after reunion. Is like, guys, we're just characters. Just think of us as like wrestling characters and whatnot, because, So we need the reunion to ground us again as an audience and take us away from what isn't real, remind us of what is real. So... who informs what is real and what isn't real? Who informs what are the rules of the simulation and, what rules are just real life rules and that don't apply or do apply? It's in America, in the original franchise, it's Andy Cohen. But Andy Cohen is able to do that because Andy Cohen is involved in the creation of it. So he's the god of this world, right? And then Andy Cohen is also then someone who's grown with the franchise. He understands all of the nuance. He understands the history. He is able to kind of be the judge and the law book. Yes. You know what I mean?
Yeah. He also knows when the girls are on call for production, when this might have happened, what night.
He's in touch
with
the...
he's understanding the curation of the simulation.
Exactly. He's informing it. But he won't admit to that. Right? So, what this means is that... when we get to the reunion, we are, recalibrating, but we are also reestablishing what the rules are. Right? And we are reestablishing what is acceptable, what isn't acceptable in the simulation. So that when we come back next season, right, we know again what we can still keep from our performance and what was too far. Now, what informs what is too far is where it gets interesting. Because we all, as individuals who watch reality TV, decide, I learned, based on our own goals and motivations, what is going too far and what isn't, or what feels real, or what's just enough, like what I'm okay with faking and what I'm not okay with being fake. There are no two viewers who actually agree on every little thing, what they would like to be lied to about, and what they wouldn't like to be lied to about. So that's at play, right? And Andy Cohen is the only person who has the final say on that. Even the characters themselves, the women who, as they show up, they also decide for themselves what is and what isn't. And because Andy isn't there all season long, anything can happen. Neil can call Sarisha any kind of thing, and we can be like, whoa, that's crossing a line, an invisible line. And then we wait for Andy to confirm that at the reunion, that was a line and you crossed it, right? And now Andy also is a magician because he does it in a way where he doesn't feel... He feels like he's just... I'm just
the invisible hand of God.
Exactly.
We don't quite
See
it. We know it's at play.
He doesn't assert his godness. Whether the firing or the hiring, he'll never own that. He won't threaten anyone there. He'll just act like, I'm just here for the truth. I just want to clarify.
He's just like the invisible hand of the markets.
Yes,
girls,
capitalist girls.
Yeah, capitalist girls.
It's got nothing to do with race.
Oh my God, the market is upset. And the market's having a tough day.
Like this idea that there's like this third unseen pie in the sky,
interesting
big brother, right?
This is analysis.
So we know it's him. Guys, I had to come back to my sanity because I couldn't sleep. And then. So then that means that when we have Mablé, right? Because I don't like to impose American anything on a South African anything. But again, this is a self-contained universe, right? Like that is self-referential. And so I need its language from it.
Yes.
And where can I go?
Yeah.
To America. So Maple is entering into this role that is impossible to fill. Like he is not of this world, right? But not only that, he didn't make this world, right? And Andy is able to be all these three things. Maker of the world, viewer of the world, critic of the world, participant of the world.
Fuels different parts of the world with his show.
Exactly. Like he runs, he's the universe.
Yeah, he is
because
the
then
universe.
You bring in What Happens Live and the other Bravo shows. So that's a role already Maple will just never, I don't think anyone else in the world, right, can ever have, can ever be placed that way, because Andy himself, like, he can't believe it, right? Like that's the kind of thing that happens once, where you are the face of a franchise so much that you are the franchise. And so when we get to the reunion, the things that we are not going to get are that kind of justice, because justice is about the book. Maple doesn't have the book. And what ends up happening is that Maple that isn't able to move gracefully between the simulation and reality because he doesn't know the bounds of either.
Yes.
And the only people he can really refer to as the book are the audience.
Yeah.
And that makes such an insecure leader. Coast.
Yes.
Right? I have to be, it's like parenting. Like as I needed structure, right? I didn't love it, but I needed it.
Yeah.
Because when I was feeling insecure, my parents being a constant is what kept me safe.
Exactly.
We need the same thing on this show. But now, if your parent is consulting with you on every little thing, you're like, wait, so then do I have a parent?
Yeah.
That's the frustration.
That is the frustration.
You watch Maple just kind of not even be faithful to either. Right? He can't move between what are real life expectations or what is permissible in the simulation. So that's why it was frustrating. And so what happens when Sorisha goes, like she blows up. Number one, when Viv is brought in, and Uncle Viv, we're calling him, Uncle Viv's like real world power.
Yes.
Right? Has implications on the simulation. Maria is not wrong to say, well, I can't say anything now.
And Nongu.
And Nongu, right?
Yeah.
By the rules of the book, it's unfair. Yes. Right? But when and how do we determine okay, now here's the end between the simulation and reality? Yes. Do we do that when Neil is saying all these ugly things about Sorisha?
Yeah.
Technically not, because we're still in the simulation. He's having a reaction to something that is happening within the simulation.
Interesting.
But there are real world implications.
Yes. This is an interesting conversation about temporality also. By the way.
We could be here forever. in the sense that things are fleeting.
Yeah.
So we couldn't draw the line then.
Yeah.
And so it's like, do we draw the line at the reunion?
Yes.
But the reunion is the only place we have to reestablish like equilibrium.
Yes.
And so
it's
becomes
interesting
messy.
because we also are watching Maple herding cats and not being able, because of course these women are going to be like,
because it's more their world than it is his.
Yes.
And they're the ones who've defined, at least as far as they're concerned, like they understand the rules of this world.
Why the girls are not, yeah, you have. Can I also say, in part, this conversation about simulation is very interesting for me, and it's really telling. Particularly, it's exposed in this reunion. When Jojo says, "What happened, Sorisha? Why are we no longer friends?"
Yes, it becomes a production problem,
yes,
right?
no, but we also,
line.
but when Sorisha opts out of the simulation and says at 2 a.m.
Exactly,
this man had been working a whole day.
Exactly, but then you're bringing in production. That's the fourth wall.
Exactly, that's the fourth wall that's being exposed. Yeah. We are also like 2 a.m.
Yes,
this is not real.
Exactly,
right? Okay,
yeah.
So they're shooting, and we need to just get shots. Things are not just beautifully on our scene. We're breaking down that fourth wall.
Yes. It's when Truman on the Truman Show takes down the blue banner.
Exactly.
And it's like, whoa,
what?
It's not the sky.
This is created.
This is where my word ends.
Anyway, so when this fight is transport, or not a fight, when Sorisha assesses the merits of Jojo's character, and says, I am opting out of this relationship
Yeah.
and this friendship. And she also says, what is interesting is that as soon as lights come up, you start crying.
It's like, oh, and then she's yes, and oh,
And you know what Sarisha is? You know what Sarisha is? She's proficient in white womanhood.
Yes,
and
yes,
what
and she's
it
calling
does,
it out.
and she's calling it out.
Yes, yes.
And so this is an interesting thing because Jojo has been exposed for her white woman fragility, she then becomes ugly.
Yes.
To Sarisha.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
almost as like
Yeah.
consistent. And this is interesting what you say here about the simulation because we watch Sarisha consistently throughout the episode saying, I don't need to do this. I don't need to do this. I'm opting out of this.
Yeah.
I'm opting out of
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
And it would be interesting to see if she's going to come back next season.
It would, and I think she will.
Because I think she's finally said, because Sarisha, we forget, is also an actress and has also been working in the industry for a long time. Sarisha is also well-traveled, probably has all these things. So instinctually understands what you've just kind of surfaced.
So Sarisha the person.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
Right? And so Sarisha's interesting to me because she's also able to perform a type of thing and also wear the many hats that she wears in real life as Sarisha
And be a
the wife.
boss and be in,
Exactly.
Yeah.
And these things have never done this
Overlapped, yeah.
until Neil calls her the disgusting things that he calls her. This might now have real world implications.
Exactly.
For her.
And so that's where like the simulation is destabilized,
Yeah.
right? And we haven't done this in the right fora.
Yeah.
Reunion is where you do that. Like, well, if I'm not even speaking particularly to what Neil said, but if you are going to say things that have real world implications, you can only say them in the space that we have all decided is now the real world, which is the reunion, right?
Yes. And where you're
but
being
before
made accountable to the real
exactly,
world.
that's when we can actually be accountable to the real world. But what I want to point out to you about what you just said to me or add is that not only is that kind of like fourth wall taken down, that disruption, but the lines, right, when it comes to the person, like we always are saying, we're talking about the character, not the person, but it's reality TV, so it's not that easy. So what's interesting is that Sarisha the person, right, divests from Jojo the person, but in the simulation, they are characters who are still invested in one another.
And this is what rocks Jojo.
What rocks Jojo, because she's like, all season, which is also unfair, because that's not something she could bring up in the season, because again, the season is the simulated world.
Yes.
So she can't say, I'm mad at you for what you did about production, because what production?
Yes.
This is fly on the wall.
This is real.
You know
This
what
is
I mean?
real.
Exactly. So even the characters themselves betraying the simulation because the person can no longer take the real world implications of what their character is getting, whether earned or not.
Yeah.
So I found that
is
to
good.
be like so grounding. Like when I was able to just like put everyone back in their shelf.
Good, Ayanda.
So, and this is where I'm gonna call it. When Sarisha then leaves.
Yeah.
When Sarisha then leaves. So I was speaking outside of the mic. She undoes the simulation because she leaves it. Not only she doesn't just call it out, she leaves it. So now there are things within the simulation we can't resolve, right? Like we can't resolve Sarisha the character because the person is gone, and then they can't maintain the pretense now.
Yeah.
They can't all now stay committed to the simulation.
And it becomes a very unsatisfactory.
It does.
Unsatisfactory reunion.
And what my player
Yeah.
doesn't understand, shame. And this is not even an attack on him. I don't think I could do a better job myself.
Yeah.
What my player doesn't understand is that calling out, and I understand because it's, let's go back to the why. My player, again, is using the rule book that the audience provides. He wants to be fair by the audience because the audience are grounded in the real world.
Yeah.
Right. Like,
And
so
he also needs the buy-in of the audience to maintain this check.
that too.
Yeah.
If you want to go, full inception, like macro. But because my play can only go back now to like what the audience what the audience has been needing, right? Which is again a real world expectation, a real world emotional reaction to a simulated world. And so what he does, which I don't think he understood, which I don't even think had means anything. I don't think he ruined anything for the audience. But for me, right, as someone who was working with this formula, what he does is that he goes, okay, I can't save the simulation. And then he says something around like, I said I would get to the bottom of this or whatever, but it's like, no, you didn't. You didn't, because you didn't resolve it within the simulation.
Exactly.
You've resolved it in real life, and what you've done, you've called out what's at play, which is that everyone is a villain.
Yeah.
We know that. We know that these women are crafty, but we also understand that that is what this genre needs.
Yes.
This genre needs crafty women to keep going. So, Andy will never go, all of you. Right? He'll go, are you willing to take? And are you willing?
Yes.
And if they're not willing, he never goes, but you have to. Yeah. Because he understands that it's a delicate balance to hold the person accountable without losing the character. And I think that's what was undone here. That's what was unsettling for me all season and all reunion. And it just makes me think I want this platform to be about good South African television, evocative, and good is, I know, relative and you know, personal.
It's objective to the two of us.
Exactly, right? So like,
podcast.
if ultimately I want to feel like I'm spending time on things that are really like well made, ingenious, and I want to, you know, revel in that genius and celebrate it with other people. It makes me wonder if I'm going to be, and this is a global problem, like Potomac is having the same problem, like so many of the Real Housewives franchises are like crumbling, and a lot of people who take this genre seriously are going, I don't know if it's worth it, because now we are not working within like the intellectual and emotional bounds that we had all agreed to silently, you know, years ago. And so it's not fun anymore. Like I can't, if you undo the rules of football won't be fun.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And so it just made me think really deeply about like, okay, so then is it a good show?
Yeah.
And is it worth my time?
Yeah. I mean, this is the question that we've been asking ourselves consistently. It's like, how much time do you spend on Real Housewives of Durban? Because we are aware that the social contract that we signed implicitly when we entered the world of Real Housewives of Durban no longer exists in the same way.
Yes, yes.
Right? Season 1, again, I think is an instructive season. It's a fascinating season.
Which is funny. That's like a reality phenomenon.
Yes.
Like everyone's first season.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right? But yes, right? is also because we're still quite not sure as an audience how much of it is a simulation, how much of it is real.
Even the characters themselves.
Yes, even now in 2024.
Exactly.
We still get the magic of a first season because we're still in this. And then as a season establishes itself further and further.
And its rules and tropes. And
yes, people start to play into those rules and tropes. And we see someone like Zama who understood that her role was to be a textbook villain, right?
Underutilized at this reunion.
But also, I mean, I don't actually go into the minutia because this is the podcast.
Sure. No, I mean, listen. Yeah, sure, I guess. I mean, I still want to calculate some few things.
No, of course. But, This is the question that usually people that probably are part of the know-it-alls, like family now, have probably been asked multiple times. You're a smart black woman. Why do you care about these reality shows? You're a smart black woman. Why do you care about popular culture? You're smart.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Why are you wasting your degree on this?
And I think this was very helpful for me. I think I really because what's happening on TikTok is also interesting. Like it's like the fall of Kylie Jenner, the this of that, the this of that. In a different way, there are economic and market implications for our divestment from the reality
celebrity,
show industry. Right? There's an actual divestment that we are seeing from people's actual dollars and rands. People are opting out of these things, which is why financially overstretched will not make a profit, right? Because we have divested from this. And I think that's also interesting. I mean, sorry, I keep doing
I get it, because you're in your body.
I mean, but I mean, yes,
dude.
Yes.
That's why you find yourself being so like consumed by someone's villainy. Yeah. Right? Because you aren't able to place it. It feels personal.
Yes.
Because I think the reason why we were able to distance ourselves from Lisa Vanderpump's villainy, from even Camille Grammer's villainy, is that like it was vicious. Like it was they were very legible kind of soap opera kind of villains.
Yes.
Well, Camille was. Lisa was a bit underhanded, right?
I think she was too.
But she was underhanded.
Okay.
So we didn't clock it as... Camille was just a mean girl fresh out, right? But even when Lisa's kind of villainy hit its peak, we weren't devastated by Lisa the person. Like, we could still invest in Lisa Vanderpump because Lisa's villainy was only exists really in the simulation.
Yeah.
Like, she's manipulative of friends in the simulation to push a certain kind of story for the simulation.
Yes.
Right? Like, she's not attacking people's families outside. And maybe she
Yeah.
is, I don't know. Camille was attacking people, you know, as characters on the show in ways that were low stakes and light and petty. You know what I mean? But because those seasons, it was always very clear, at least maybe not to the audience, which I miss, the good old days of like bliss. Where we weren't proficient in the language either and in how it works.
Yes.
And so we were easily herded. Like, you could easily kind of keep us in the right place that you want us as an audience.
And at bay,
Exactly. But now we are also informing like what happens in the simulation, right? Like, it's this hyper realism kind of thing, like where we are all, it's like a back and forth until we don't know what's real anymore. So that's why it's destabilizing, because it's like, when I'm not now in the capable hands of a Real Housewives of Beverly Hills producer or whatever, and like they don't keep me in my pen, keep me in my yard.
Analysis.
Now it feels real.
Yeah.
Because you're not reminding me like that it's not real, that it doesn't. But also because in the end it didn't. It was real. It had real world implications.
Yeah.
No,
this is true. I mean, I think this is why I can't separate my now very documented hatred of Nonku.
Like exactly.
I can't.
Which I also have.
I can't. You can't tell me that she's playing a part. I can't. No,
it's hard.
She's implicated in both the real world and in her character.
Yes,
it's interesting to me that her stans understand her as a character and give her a backstory that in fact is not true.
I love it.
Like,
but it's because she understands it, but that's just successful messaging.
Agree.
Look at someone who's like, being able to herd like Nongu. Every narrative Nongu offers us lands to someone, and a good chunk of people. It lands.
You know, I also wanted to talk about briefly, not necessarily the minutiae, which will give us the comedy, but the thing that Nongu kind of elucidates is that a particular kind of Christian religiosity makes it possible for people to absolve themselves of real world harm that they have perpetrated and caused in the world, right? And it's interesting because in as much as Uzama is of a similar like mind around her Christianity, she is in fact not doing the thing that Nonku does. So Nonku uses her Christianity as the clutch that she can keep using in this show.
Well, I mean, she's had time. Let's see what Zama goes into.
I guess. The clutch, and also then the thing to, you know, pummel people with. And so for a South African, fairly conservative religious audience, particularly our black audiences, this lands. This lands. Yeah. Because we're told that you are washed anew in the blood of Jesus Christ. Right? Nonku knows this. She utilizes this. She invokes this.
She serial atoner.
Us. She atones us. She in fact, even last season says, I know what Jesus must have felt, is her actual words to Sarisha. And Sarisha's like, that's a crazy thing to say. But Nonku says that she is the lamb that is slain. Slain! Hey? For the blood
crucified.
Of the crucified. These are the metaphors. These are the significations that Nonku keeps using So in that sense, I think she's a very interesting villain, because we don't even like the super the super religious girls in the States, they don't do it the same way that Nonku does it, right? You know, because like Phaedra, terrible. Ends up being a very terrible character. Doesn't start off that way necessarily. But that's because, you know, we can believe Phaedra had fallen.
Yes.
But she doesn't quite rect. She's not
Yeah,
given the...
she doesn't-
Because then Andy kicks her out of the simulation, right? She doesn't have an opportunity to
recover.
From that. Nonku has understood that if she uses this thing that is very important to a kind of Black South African public, she can continue to remake, renew, refresh her image, recycle her image every time.
Yeah.
And then she gets a person like Maple who says he's not going to speak to us about RD
and promises
when it's likely going to be part of next season. But more than that, it's really important for us as viewers to kind of get a resolution, a justification.
Yeah. Oh, we didn't get that.
Something that we can hold on to. And Maple recognizes that she holds the Bible Belt of South Africa. And panders to that himself. I mean, crafty in one sense, but I think.
Yeah.
Sorry,
No, but I think that's the challenge, right? Like, I don't think anyone's ever been able to resolve and find the point at which we can draw a definitive line between a character and a person.
Yeah.
Because you are self-curating this character.
Yeah.
So you are making decisions about, you know, what all will inform who this character is. And I mean, you use the kind of villainy or the tools or the manipulation tools that you have available to you in real life as a personality. And then you put them in your character.
Yeah.
Like, I guess, you know? But so I guess what I'm saying is I don't think you should be frustrated by not being able to draw a line between the person and the character, because the person doesn't form the character.
Sure. No, 100%.
Yeah. Yeah.
My simple answer is just I don't like her. What she did to Ayanda was wrong. I will never forgive her. I know the Lord forgave her, but I won't. And she was on Instagram telling us that we must heal. I will not. I refuse.
I refuse to heal.
And
heal. I hope it keeps you up at night. That I'm not healed.
Because then she keeps gaslighting Slee and she's like, heal up, heal.
And she knew she was saying that passive aggressively. Like, it wasn't even.
And I just want to punch her in the face.
But I want to say this. Nonku, whether she kind of understands like all of the makings I feel like Nonku understands it. She may not see it or articulate it the way that I am, but I think Nonku understands like the simulation being the simulation and real life being real life. And I think she is actually she's consistent about her narrative, which is something Maria needs to learn. For instance, whenever Nonku was attacked, or like provoked, she understood this is not the war, this is the battle.
Yes.
And so I can lose this battle, but I'll win it by continuing to not have a comeback. Yes. To just kind of let Jojo, defend me, to be hurt and to ignore her and to keep going. Like her eyes stay on the prize.
Okay.
I do have to applaud that. Again, it's her narrative. I'm not saying it's the truth. It's just she stays truthful and faithful to her narrative.
I just hate her.
How did you feel about the paparazzi? The paparazzi questions in the beginning. What would you like from me?
I don't know. How did you feel about Cressida? Like,
wait, what?
Uma Blake came in a blue Cressida.
I missed that. I probably was like getting a glass of water or something.
Remember when Angel called Nonku a blue? And I was like, oh, intertextuality, fun. But yes, the question.
Was that the reference? Do you think?
Well, that's what the world's been inferred from that. But those questions in the beginning, I was just like, stop putting an intern on this.
Stop putting an intern on this. And it just didn't need all of that production. Like, you could just go to the dressing room but then when Sarisha went to cry and like never came back, the room she was in just said makeup room. Are they all sharing a makeup room?
No. It said makeup room 2, I think.
Oh, but so the names
No, but
don't...
it seemed like what I saw on Instagram, and I wanted to bring this up when in the beginning Maria's like it's a concerted effort to just divide us. It seemed to me like it looked like the makeup was being done in camps.
Oh my God. Yeah. Which again, that's the kind of reeling in that only an Andy can do, because that's someone who's not only like, talking to them on camera, but also runs the thing.
Exactly.
And like, because what does Jojo mean? I wanted to say, so when you say maybe we just aren't allowed to, shouldn't be friends, and we should just keep it copacetic. Where do you think a show is gonna come from?
Exactly.
Don't you know
what the fuck do you think you're talking?
You have to always be striving towards like this friendship that's never gonna happen because you guys hate each other. Keep acting like you want to be friends. That's the whole point.
Also,
when my player said witchcraft and it said vibes. Like that makes it better.
But this is what I'm saying is that she knows that Jesus Christ is gonna
make it all go away.
Make it all go away, and it makes me so angry. Look. There's just so many moments also that I'm mad at Maple about because we get missed opportunities, missed back and forth, and like you had far more compelling and sophisticated analysis for what was happening. But I think what I'm also frustrated about with Maple is he's not in fact a good facilitator. He might in fact be the most interested of the few hosts that we've had, but facilitator he is not. He is not in fact able to pick up the multiple strands and follow where, because when Jojo says, I think that Sarisha is the person that needed that actually needed to address and say, I forgive you for this in the beginning of the season. Why don't we hear more?
We're not.
Why don't we hear
There's so many drop balls.
Why is there so much unseen footage?
Yeah, that was frustrating.
That got me crazy. From seasons ago, we still don't have a resolution with the Sané story from last year, and they have unseen footage that they could have put on early into the season. Why do we not know about Manolo and Manet? I don't know.
That man, yeah.
That man.
Maria's entire life wasn't on the show.
Like the divorce?
Divorce, babe.
Divorce.
Yeah.
I think that would have lent her something apart from this other nonsense.
I think worst of all is Amy. Because what we didn't get in the season, we didn't get in the reunion either.
Yeah.
Like, what?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
She is so frustrating.
Yeah. Mable doesn't hold Nonku accountable for the witchcraft comment. Why? The RHOD segment is shallow. It's so infuriating. I own Nonku no loyalties is an iconic line. I want it on a t-shirt. Because in fact. So this is, to me, I will wear a highlighter green top with white font that says, I owe Nonku no loyalties. I will do it.
I will be seen in public with you wearing that. That's about as much as I can commit to.
Also interesting is that Neil is clearly scared because something has happened in the background.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's so hilarious to me that he woke up, ironed his gold t-shirt, and then realized he could only be on that stage for 2 seconds. To me,
it was so funny.
Must have been.
It was so funny, and
so comedic.
For my player to not know what had happened,
exactly.
That was such that was undermining to his role as the host.
Yeah. And especially when all the girls are like, yeah, we can't talk about it now.
Yeah.
It's this morning. Why did he not ask?
Thank you.
Why does he feel like he cannot ask us? Because, again...
And that's why Neil knows that he can just shush him.
Exactly. And this, and also, like, I appreciated his, like, Neil came with masculine energy and...
It was something.
It was something. But... in the absence of the world building and then the world I don't know, like in understanding what had happened in that world, I think it just
had no weight. Which is why they were able to stall for forever until they were like, okay, you're right, we did cross the line.
I did say though, Jokuzama are such an infuriating group, purposely made the space impenetrable with their side comments and snarky things.
They wouldn't let people talk.
Yes, they just were a wall. They were an iron wall, and we needed Maple to be like,
that's
stop
not.
this.
But then in what Maple can only say that, like, it only holds water in the room. Maple can't really change their behavior,
Yeah.
right? Because he doesn't also hold the keys to their next
the
season.
kingdom. Yeah.
You know,
You're right. I mean, it's interesting. Jojo, at the end of her Instagram thing yesterday, says, Maple, you did a good job this time. What? Also, something that really irritates me about these girls is that they always say, I just really liked you.
And I still want to be your friend. Jojo said, Angela, still...
No, but the idea of I really liked you.
As if
it's
it's up to
validating.
yes.
Shut up.
That's not fair though. Because,
Shut up.
I mean, when you are the newcomer, it is up to them to like you.
Shut up. I hate it. Don't be like, I really liked you. What? Hate it.
Ma'am,
Hate it.
that concludes our RHOD Durban review.
Look. You'll laugh next week.
I don't even care. It's like those are my feelings, those are my thoughts. I'm not your jester, okay?
I'm not your quite jester.
Best dressed?
Maria, for me.
Uh-huh.
Like, it just felt the most cohesive. And it just felt cohesive. And I loved her jewelry.
So you, okay. Best makeup?
I don't know. Amy seemed the most...
I didn't see her. She was out of frame.
Oh, no. Slee's face was stunning.
Yes.
No,
beautiful.
But it was...
Beautiful.
It was extra real all about it.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Hair?
I don't know if it was the best makeup, but her face was
okay.
extraordinary.
Okay. Best hair?
Best hair. Angel.
Yes. Agreed. Okay, I'm leaving it there. I'm not doing who won, who thinged. The game was rigged. It didn't work. It broke.
It broke, It broke right in front of us.
Game.
It was, Edna?
That's a whole nother side.
That's another
Which is
episode.
not... Is it? Okay, girl.
Because I want to talk about Poppy in relation to Edna
I've seen...
and Toyota offering those girls...
Yeah.
It's not an episode. It's,
got it.
It's a low stakes
take.
popular culture take. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you again for joining us this week. We had so much fun. You see how flustered we are. We are now going to go home and continue to sit in these feelings. Yeah.
Yeah, we so appreciate that you came back. We have 87 subscribers, which is so fantastic.
Let's take it to 100.
Let's take it to 200. Let's take it to 1,000. Let's take it.
Yeah, but
let's just take it.
Small goals, 100 first. Baby steps. Milestones. And please comment. Like, we want to hear from you.
We
are
say so obsessed with what you have to say.
And follow us on other platforms. TikTok. I'll link them all down below. So I'm saying that on YouTube.
Okay. We're back on the story.
That's it.
We love you.